So in just 11 weeks time, I'll be lining up for one of the toughest challenges I've ever faced, the Lakeland 50. Right now, I'm 6 weeks into my training plan, averaging about 25 kilometers of running and 25 kilometers of hiking a week. Now, a lot of my training is built around time on my feet. So off the back of that, I thought it'd be a good idea last week to complete the Cumbrian Way. And for those that don't know, the Cumbrian Way is a 120 kilometer through hike, starting in Ulverston and finishing in Carlisle. It's a really good adventure and it was really great to test out some equipment. I actually found out that I won't be wearing Gore-Tex shoes on the day as they don't agree with my feet. They cause my feet to swell up, sweat, and gave me a ton of blisters. So instead, I'll be opting for breathable Hoka Speedgo 6s, and I'll take some waterproof socks in case we get wet out, which I'm sure we will do. And this was actually the second time I completed the Cumbrian Way. I completed it for the first time back in 2024, and as you can see, we faced some of the worst weather and flooding I had ever experienced. And this was a harsh reminder of how brutal and extreme the weather in the Lake District can be. Now, fingers crossed we get better weather for the Lakeland 50. Now, my training is relatively flexible because I work shifts. Some weeks I work 60 hours and some weeks I work no hours. So the training is quite volatile. For example, last week we did 120 kilometers and then 20 kilometers of running, which is a crazy week, 140 kilometer week. Obviously, a lot of that's walking, majority of that's walking. But what are my goals and why am I doing an ultra marathon? Now, for me, it's just to complete something hard. I think there's a lot to be said for completing hard things, and I think it really gives you a recalibration and a rebalance on what's important in your life. It's a reminder of how important your body is and how thankful we are for our ability to move, walk, and run. And I think everybody needs something to aim for and something to work towards. And any running race requires preparation, grit, and determination. Now, I think everybody has a different why when it comes to their reason why they choose to run a marathon or an ultra marathon. It gives you structure, it gives you routine, and of course, it makes you fitter and stronger, which there is no downside to. So today's run, we've got a 10-kilometer run on the cards. Let's get into it. When I was training for my marathon back in 2024 last year, I found the training a little bit monotonous. Now, I do enjoy the discipline, I do enjoy turning up and getting those miles in, and I think there's a lot to be said for routine. However, training for an ultra, in my opinion, and definitely so far, has been a lot more rewarding and a lot more exciting because I can kind of justify doing things that are a little bit less running specific. So things like hiking, things like camping, things like doing through hikes, because it all ties in really well to the training. But saying that, I haven't been neglecting the road running. I'll see you on the road. Okay, so today's training run is 10 kilometers, easy pace. Now, I do love the easy runs as I can really lock into a slow zone 2 heart rate pace and really enjoy the run with a bit of music or podcasts. Now, anything over an hour, I like to take about 500 ml of water and maybe one gel. I just feel like at about kilometer 7, it'll give me a little bit of a pickup. Especially when it's hot on a day like today, it's important to stay hydrated and keep replacing those sodium levels. So I've been using the Training Peaks program set up by Howard, and it's really good because it just goes straight through to my Garmin watch. So all I'm going to do is click do workout, 1 hour easy run. Let's get it. Very fortunate enough to live near the beautiful promenade on the Foul Coast, which is perfect. However, it is really flat, so I don't want to get lured into a false sense of security because I'm not gaining that much elevation. However, that's where the Lake District and Snowdonia come in handy. I've been doing a ton of hiking and camping in those areas to make sure I get familiar with the amount of elevation I'll be gaining come race day. But what does it look like to actually train for an ultra as a complete beginner? Now, this is my first ultra marathon, and my main goal under the supervision of my coach Howard has been to spend as much time on my feet as possible. This includes a ton of road running, as much hiking as I can cram in, with the main goal being time on my feet. Now, last week I completed the Cumbrian Way, which is a 120 kilometer through hike from Ulverston all the way up to Carlisle. We did it in 3.5 days, averaging 35 kilometers a day. Okay guys, we're arrived in Ulverston. Time to find where the boys are at. It's easier that way, isn't it? So day 1 of walking across the Lake District on the Cumbria Way. Today we've got 30 kilometers planned. So a 21.75k in, 5 hours and 10 minutes, so just over half marathon. Pretty decent pace. I'm wearing like Gore-Tex Solomon trail running shoes, and I really regret it because it's really dry and my feet are sweating like mad. So my feet are more wet than if I was just wearing breathable shoes, if that makes sense. Like Gore-Tex shoes for me, it's just a bit of a fad. Like your feet are gonna get soaked from condensation and sweat if your feet aren't breathable. You know what I mean? I think it makes more sense to have them if you're doing something in snow or in seriously wet conditions. But a walk like this, it was a bad decision that. So I'm going to get some plasters when I get to Keswick. Good morning, guys. Decent night's sleep. Woke up pretty late. It's like 9 o'clock nearly. I need to get packed away and get on road. But coming up on the official end point of the Cumbria Way. Finally, this little pillar in Market Square. Whew. Covered in scaffolding, but we made it, baby. Come on.
122 kilometers.
122 kilometers, yeah. Let's stop the Strava. 121.1. 44 hours, that's when I've had it running. Finish. Take a screenshot in case it busts up. Oh my god. Evening hike. That's because we started at 2 o'clock that. Whew, I'm tired, man. Uploading in progress. I do not want to lose this. This is my pride and joy for today. We camped for 3 nights and basically did about 35 to 40 kilometers a day. It was really good, and we covered about 3,000 meters again, which was brilliant. Now, the time on the feet is the most important thing, as it's going to prepare you to cover the distance come race day. Now, you might be asking, Joe, walking across the Lake District isn't going to help you with a running ultramarathon. And you'd kind of be right. However, it's important to spend time on your feet, get used to all your gear and equipment, make sure your fueling strategy works come the day of the Lakeland 50. So along with hiking, through hiking and road running, it's been very important to incorporate strength training into the program. The main reason for this is to prevent injury and make sure you feel strong come race day.
Do you want sauce on yours?
Quick refeed at the ice cream van. No such thing as bad carbs. So let's talk about discipline / motivation. Now, this topic is very common on social media, and I think there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. Obviously everyone puts a different spin on it, but for me, I feel like it's very important to set non-negotiables. There's no such thing as a bad run, because the only bad runs are the ones that you don't do. And I think it's very important to take pride in your work and be proud of what you do, and at the same time set realistic expectations, man. You're not going to become an Olympic runner overnight. These things happen over years and years with small steps, and I think if you overreach, you'll find yourself often being disappointed. So my main goal for the Lakeland 50 is to complete the race, make sure I don't DNF, and of course enjoy the process of getting fitter, stronger, getting ready for a summer in the Alps, tackling some of the biggest mountains in Europe. Okay, that's 10k in the bank in the glorious sun. I'm dripping with sweat, but it was a really good workout, and it was good to get my fueling in. So I had one gel at about 6.5 kilometers, and I've drank a full water, so probably about 450 mils. And in there, I like to put a little cis electrolyte tablet just to make sure I'm replenishing my salts, my electrolytes, as I'm depleting them, if that makes sense. One thing that I have suffered with in the past, especially when racing on hot days, is cramping. Now, even if you don't suffer from it, I feel like when you really push that mileage, the last 10 to 20% of the race, you'll really start to feel it, man. Whether it's in your legs or even your back and arms, like I felt it all over, man. And that was purely because I didn't fuel correctly and I wasn't replacing those electrolytes. Not only will I be having soluble electrolytes in my drink, I also like those salt chews. They're like little, almost like mints, quite big, and they basically replenish all the electrolytes. They're really good and they're really tasty and convenient. I think they're like glucose and salt, so I'll be taking quite a few of those come the Lakeland 50. Because it's an ultra and not a sprint, it's so important to make sure your fueling is correct. Probably burn something in the region of about 4,000 to 6,000 active calories, which is pretty crazy, and I'm gonna have to consume at least 2,000 to 3,000 calories on trail to prevent myself from bonking. So I'll be taking on a ton of different foods. And it's important to test these foods before race day to make sure my stomach can handle them and I enjoy them and they're palatable, because there'll be nothing worse than getting to an aid station, feeling a little bit tired and fatigued and not being able to eat those really important calories and carbohydrates that will keep me going on trail. So that's 10k done, average pace of 6:45. Like I say, I'm not breaking any records on most of these runs because it's a a very long distance endurance event, most of my training is slow. And saying that, I'm not a very fast runner anyway. Yeah, I like to think I've got the grit and determination to keep going on those longer distances. That's why an ultra attracts me over, say, a fast 5k or even shorter races. I think there's beauty in the struggle. And I personally believe that 95% of people within a reasonable time frame could train and complete an ultra marathon, mainly because the cut-offs tend to be a little bit more generous, and it does come down to, like I say, that determination and preparation come race day. Thanks for watching this month's update, and next month we're going to be hitting up the Yorkshire 3 Peak Challenge as a bit of a training run. And for those that don't know, the Yorkshire 3 Peak Challenge is the 3 highest peaks in the Yorkshire Dales within 12 hours: Penwygent, Whernside and Ingleborough, with a total of 40 kilometres and about 1700 metres of gain. So the goal is to complete this within 12 hours, and we're going to be aiming for around 6. I'll see you then.